Well, hello there. My name is Karsten, and today we're back with another podcast episode. So a few things just right off the bat to start. It's also real fast, the audio was super loud right here, so if you want to just turn your volume down for just this intro, it'll get better soon, I promise, just letting you know. I'm so sorry. It's gonna be a longer episode today because I got a few requests to just kind of, talk for a while. Have a nice long podcast that you can listen to in your free time whenever you feel the need to listen in the background of me talking because, obviously I'm your favorite to hear ever because I do have I'm just gonna stop. So, that's loud. All right, I can't decide what's loud here. Hello. So, shoot, I just dropped my windscreen. So, today's episode is gonna involve a lot of research and stuff because this is something I'm very interested in. This is genuinely an interesting thing. So a little quick heads up before we start, just in case you don't want to listen to this. I'm gonna be talking about Mayans and mysteries and weird world unsolved mysteries. And yes, I am a firm believer, by the way, in in other universal beings. There is definitely life in space somewhere, and I'll explain that a little later. So I just want to start by saying something, and I'm pretty sure this is just kind of scientifically it's scientifically possible. It has to be scientifically proven, scientifically guaranteed that there is life somewhere because of the sheer amount of universes that are out there, because we are just one. We are just the Milky Way galaxy in one universe, and there are just the amount, that's huge to us because even the Earth is big to us, but the Earth is 100 billion times smaller than a speck in the actual galaxies and worlds and stuff. But really the Earth, if that seems big, then there's a solar system that also seems gigantic. That's farther than we can ever get to. There are places in the solar system like Neptune or Uranus or whatever that we physically couldn't get to without, it would take way too long. Planets like that are so far out into the solar system that it would just take too long. Thousands or hundreds of light years. Let me look it up right now. How long would it take for an astronaut to get to Neptune? Oh, well, it turns out it wouldn't actually take that long. It would take 12 years. But that is a lot of years. Also, it would kind of mess up a lot of stuff. If you're being in space for 12 years, that's kind of just impossible because I don't know if you've heard of this. There's this guy called Scott. I don't know what his last name is, but it's this whole famous thing. I watched an episode on it somewhere. I don't know what it was. But I watched it in science class. This guy named Scott who spent a year in space. And it's a documentary. And it was really just to see what would change. He had a twin brother, and they both tested their genes and stuff, and a bunch of random tests, blood tests and things. And he spent a year in space, and he got down. I think he was slightly smaller. Maybe he was slightly older. Things were weird, and gravity messed him up for a year. So being in space for 12 years, actually 24 years, because it takes you 12 years to get there and 12 years back, it would almost be impossible. Getting home would be really hard. It's dark. It's free. Once you get to Neptune, there's nothing you can do there. I don't think it's physically possible to be on Neptune because of the temperatures and things. And how we know this is the Voyager 2, which I'm not exactly positive what the Voyager 2 is, but it didn't have any humans in it, I don't think. No, I definitely didn't. The Voyager 2 is a space probe launched by NASA on August 20th of 1977 to study the outer planets and interstellar space beyond the sun's heliosphere. So that launched in 1977. And, it came back on 1989. So it took 12 years. Wait, no. Hold on. I can't exactly figure this out. Did it take 6 years to get to Neptune and then 6 years back? Because when did the Voyager 2 come back? How long? Let me see what this says. Yep. Okay. Yeah, it's strange. No, not yet. They're each an hour long, so I'm 4 episodes in. Yeah. All right. So it says, okay, I'm just going to read this to you guys. Voyager 2 traveled 12 years at an average velocity of 19 kilometers a second. Wow. 42,000 miles an hour. That in its own is mind-blowing. That's groundbreaking. Can you imagine that? Oh my God. To reach Neptune. Also, that's physically impossible. Just going at 42,000 miles per hour. Humans, obviously humans can't do that. Humans are struggling to go into a Bugatti Chiron at 300, 250, 230 miles per hour. 42,000 is so much more than that. We die within 0.5 seconds. So even the fact that it would take 24 years, because I'm gonna keep reading this, to reach Neptune, which is 30 times farther from the sun than Earth is. Wow, 30 times farther from the sun than Earth. That's crazy. It observed Neptune almost continuously from June to October in 1989. So it got there in 1989. So it took 12 years to get there, and then that means it would have to take 12 years back. I'm assuming it just didn't come back. I don't think it's possible. So yeah, but also the fact that it was going so fast. Humans, if we were in some sort of thing, let's just start with this. If there's some way that humans could be in space for 24 years on end, just like that, it would be much longer, because if there was a way to do that, this is in the movie Interstellar. We're not spinning at a massive massive speed to literally have gravity in space. You're gonna have to go at a speed that humans can physically handle. Actually, let me see how fast a human can physically go. But you're gonna have to like handle an actual speed. It's gotta be something that you can actually survive in. So if they went 42,000 miles per hour at a continuous speed to get to Neptune, the Voyager 2, there's no shot we'd make it in 12 years. It would be like 50 years. Okay, I don't know if this helps, but humans can go, let's see, it's not speed that's a problem, but acceleration and deceleration. Okay, so apparently a human can go, the maximum survivable G-force is 16 grams. 16 G's, not grams. What am I doing? 157 meters a second. So let's see, hold on. Oh, and then 42,000 miles per hour is 111.7. Oh gosh, whoa. 11.7 miles per second. And that's, I think that was meters per second. Yeah, no shot, no physical shot. A human could even endure that for the slightest of minutes. That's just impossible. So as I was saying, even Neptune is far for us. It's too far for us to physically go. The sun is far from us. It's 93.6 something million miles away. That's crazy. That's insane how far that is. But imagine, that's just our solar system. Like we literally are in a Milky Way galaxy, and are there other solar systems in the Milky Way? Hold on. Okay, listen to this. In our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, astronomers have discovered more than 3,200 stars with planets orbiting them. So it could be even more planets. Now, if they have life, nobody knows. It could be physically impossible. Well, I mean, somewhere, but like the chances could be so slim that it's just impossible. But that's 32,000 stars. That's kind of like 3,200. That's kind of like 3,200 suns with that many solar systems, except ours is the only one officially called a solar system, according to how many solar systems are in our galaxy, published by NASA Space Explore and Space. NASA Science Space Place Explore Earth and Space. Check out the website. It's kind of sick. So that's just our galaxy. How many galaxies are you asking? Are you asking? Well, probably billions. Okay, never mind. Did I really just say billion? Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. One 2016 study estimated that the observable universe contains 2 trillion or 2 million galaxies. And just keep it this. The solar system, not our solar system, sorry, space is rapidly expanding by the second. It's getting bigger every time you blink. Is it by much? Actually, yes, it's getting very big. It is expanding. It's almost infinite. So that by itself is crazy. 2 trillion, okay? 2 trillion. And if our galaxy has only, a 3,200 stars with planets orbiting them, and there are 2 trillion more of those, like the Andromeda galaxy, which is like 1,000 light years away, okay, then we're in for something. I would say this is what I said. I'm just gonna give you some context. Oh, jeez. I had a cooking class with my friend Luke and Nate. And if you don't know who they are, Nate is in my podcast, the Lunch Table podcast. We actually have a podcast with him and my other friend Colin. You can find it on YouTube if you search it up on YouTube. I posted it on here on my MLWD podcast, just as like bonus episodes. And then Luke was in the first episode. He talks sometimes. He's in the background. You hear his voice in that episode. So I was going to a cooking class with them. So sick. We made some German food. It was insane. Shout out to them. And shout out to Nate's dad, because he is so chill and he brought us there. And I left my bag there because they took it from me in the beginning and said I couldn't have it with me. My diabetes bag. And I could technically say, I need it. I'm a diabetic. No, it doesn't matter. I could just find it. I could just ask. But since we were doing it for 3.5 hours and they took it from me at the very beginning, it's kind of hard to keep track of. So I felt really bad. We ended up going back though. We had this great conversation about Mayans and like the expandable universe and life out there and stuff like that, and aliens. I know it sounds crazy, and maybe aliens don't look like the hollow-eyed, ovalish, pear head looking weird extraterrestrials. But it could be anything. I said this. I think in my heart, it's okay. I gotta figure out exactly how I worded this. It's more impossible that there isn't life somewhere than that there is, because the amount of like actual galaxies. That's right, galaxies. And our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, could have up to 3,200 or maybe more stars with planets orbiting them. It's kind of like solar systems. So if we have a solar system where only one out of the all the planets, like, all of them, I actually can't. I'm so bad at naming planets, but I just know there's like a lot. It's like 12 or 9 or something. I'm talking about such weird things, but I really just said there was 12. There's 8 planets in the solar system. My bad. There used to be 9 because of Pluto, but now Pluto is a dwarf planet. And there's a lot of other dwarf planets, I think, out there, just like kind of, around. But just thinking of that, there are just that many solar system type things around us. And there's 2 trillion more galaxies, and galaxies is a huge measurement because they could have so many solar systems in them that it's more impossible for there not to be life out there somewhere than it is. It's more possible that there is life than it isn't because of just how many there are. It's almost infinite. That's so many. 2 trillion, that's incredible. And there could be more because that's a 2016 study. What do we know, honestly? We're tiny. If you thought the solar system was big, absolutely not. Tiny. If you search up Neil.fun, it's this awesome website. I mean, I go on it all the time. It just has these stupid little memes. They're actually not stupid, but whoever made them is great. There's this thing called the size of space, and I'm scrolling through it right now. If you use the right arrow, you start at like an astronaut, then it gets bigger. The Hubble Space Telescope, Space Shuttle, Space Station, Saturn V rocket, and then just an asteroid already like 500 times bigger than the rocket. Deimos, the moon of Mars, like already 100 times bigger than the galaxy, and then it just goes up so much. And the sun, when you get I'm looking at like Mars right now, it looks gigantic compared to those rockets. You can't see the rocket anymore, which makes sense. Here's Sirius B, a white dwarf star that looks giant already. Earth looks super big. Earth-like exoplanet called Kepler 22b, which in my opinion, I feel like that has life in its own because it's an Earth-like exoplanet. How else could you describe it for me to think that it has life? It's also bigger than Earth. It's kind of cool. Neptune, it's ice giant. That looks giant compared to Earth already. Saturn, the gas giant, looks giant compared to Neptune, and Neptune looks giant compared to Earth. Jupiter, gigantic. The sun now, it's showing me this whole thing. Here's the sun. You can see everything tiny. That small planet right there is literally Mars, and it looks tiny. It's a speck compared to the sun. And then you keep going when you get to like UYSCUTI, this red supergiant star, and then you see the black hole that the famous picture of the black hole. That thing, like, that's crazy. And that's the supergiant star that is literally like 1,000 times bigger than the sun. The sun looks like a speck compared to that. And that's just one. That's just a star. With the actual infinite amount of things out there, you don't know what could be there. And all these nebulas, huge, like the Crab Nebula, the Kepler supernova, Tycho supernova, Segue 2, Dwarf spheroidal galaxy or emission nebula, Tarantula nebula, Bernard's galaxy, the Baird irregular these are galaxies, the fireworks galaxy, these are galaxies we know of. Now, think of 2 trillion more. You literally can't. It's physically insane. So that's why I do think there's life out there. If they made contact with Earth, some people will say that's a stupid idea. Some people won't. I don't know. There's no way of proving it, and there probably never will be. But there are just coincidences out there. I'm not saying I believe aliens came to Earth and gave the ancient civilizations a helping hand, and I am also not saying that they didn't, but I do want to just share some information with you that I find interesting. I think this is the perfect segue. I took 17 minutes to explain this to you. So now we're gonna start. So I want to talk about something. I have a social studies class. I just started 7th grade. It's actually a lot of fun. We get to switch a lot of classes. Social studies is my 4th period class, and Leo is actually in my class with me, so he's on some of my podcast episodes if you look back in the past. But I think it was one of the most interesting classes I've ever had because we were just like going through the actual original American civilizations, and not Christopher Columbus, but like Native Americans or the actual original American civilizations like the Incas, the Aztecs, and the Mayas. And as Americans, we call them Mayans, but like actually it's called Mayas. Apparently, it was the Maya civilization. But they lived, I'm pretty sure, in Central America. They were the original Central America like descendants. They kind of lived there like, I don't know, so long ago. Let me look up the exact year. So that's interesting. Okay, so the Mayans lived, I'm just gonna read this to you, this paragraph. And to cite my evidence, it's Where Did the Mayans Live? By Reference. It's a website called Reference, and it's literally by staff member, last updated March 25th, 2020. Oh, that was a weird time for that to be updated. That's like right when COVID happened. I'm gonna read this paragraph to you. The Mayans lived in the Yucatan, which is now Mexico. Evidence exists indicating that they also lived in Guatemala, El Salvador, Western Honduras, and Belize. Mayans existed between the years of 2600 BC and 1800 BC. However, the Mayan Empire was in full force between 250 AD and 900 AD. So, okay, all right, 2600 BC to 900 AD. That in its own is physically insane. Because 900 AD was 1100 21 years ago, in 250 AD, when they were started being in full force, when they were so advanced, is already like 1,700 years ago. And that may not seem insane to you, but trust me, it is. And they existed between the years of 2600 BC and 1800 BC. You understand that that's like 4,000 years ago, and the Earth has been around for like 4.5 billion years. No one knows. No one really knows what happened. Probably nothing. Pangea existed when all the continents were together. There was an ice age. There was probably another ice age, I think. I'm not exactly positive. I'm not very taught about what life was like 4 billion years ago. But all I do know is that about 5,000 years ago, the Mayas started. They started. And I don't know if you know this, but the Maya civilization is so ridiculously advanced, it scares me. I'm gonna read this to you. I'm gonna start with something stupid because I want to get to the big stuff a little later. But let's start with this. The Mayas were chocolate eaters. I'm not kidding. I was doing research because in my social studies class, she allowed us to pick the Incas, Aztecs, or Mayas and do some research about them, find some interesting facts, write some notes down. Honestly, I loved it. But the Mayas apparently were chocolate eaters. We had to write a paragraph on it. I didn't write that they were chocolate eaters. I wrote that they were human sacrificial god ritualists and that they were incredibly advanced, but they were chocolate eaters. Now, I think this is the craziest thing ever. Again, citing my sources, this is called The History of Chocolate, updated February 19th, 2021, also right before COVID. And the article is, it's called The History of Chocolate on the website How Stuff Works. Who wrote this? I actually don't know, but whatever. But this is what shows up on the top of Google when you search up were the Mayas chocolate eaters. So I think this is the coolest thing ever. Oh, never mind. That was the completely wrong website. That's a different thing. That is actually a cool website. But this information that I was looking at the other day is, it's the article, The Maya Civilization Used Chocolate as Currency. It's on the website This City Knows, I think, if I'm reading that correctly. But it says the Mayans were famous chocolate eaters across history, with evidence suggesting they were processing cacao as early as 2,600 years ago. That is in BC. That's like 400 BC. They famously mixed cacao with ingredients such as honey and chili peppers. We do that today. We still do that. We still put peppers. I had a chili pepper chocolate piece once. I had a raspberry chocolate piece once. It was great, but people still do that today. With water and cornmeal, consume the hot boiling substance over rituals and festivities. Okay, these guys were such weird ritualists too. They had the weirdest things. They really believed in gods. I believe they were polytheistic, which means they believed in multiple gods. But just listen to this. They were processing cacao, again, 2,600 years ago. Incredible. They mixed cacao with ingredients such as honey and chili peppers. So we still do that. We still do that. Isn't that we still mix cacao like that? How did they do that? How did they figure something like that out that many years ago? That's insane. And we actually took the present day word chocolate from the Mayan word. I'm gonna butcher this. It starts with an X. Xalactl. Yeah, sure, whatever. And it means bitter water. So I guess it did taste bitter. And according to this website, Coxloctl, the Mayan food of the gods by History Daily, the Mayans did not cultivate sugar cane. So they had no means of sweetening the bitter cacao. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I guess it wasn't sweet. Probably tasted horrible, but I'm pretty sure we got it from them, which is interesting to me. Now, that's again the stupid thing that I was going to start with, but that's clearly not stupid, and there's clearly way more, which again is insane to me. I don't understand this. How were they so advanced? They started in literally like 500 BC or 2000 BC. Never mind. That's insane. Let me read. I'm gonna read my paragraph to you guys that I wrote. The Maya civilization were an intriguing original American people with interesting culture and traditions. The Maya were very advanced and invented astronomy concepts still used today. I'm gonna get to that next. For example, they invented one of the most accurate calendar systems of 365.25 days that shaped the calendar we use today. They had a fascination with cycles and further developed the concept of their calendar by looking at the cycle of stars and the sun. They also had religious fascinations with human sacrifice to the gods. They engaged in these rituals for protection and security of their civilization, as well as a reward to the gods above. The Mayans were a very unique yet strange civilization that is still a mystery waiting for answers. That about sums up what I'm talking about today, but now I want to go into details about this stuff. And I want to start with the human sacrifices, because these guys were so weird with it, that it is weird. Let's see. Mayan Sacrifices. I'm going to look at some articles, and we're going to do some research together. Let's start with this. www.science.org. That might be the most broad article name I've ever heard. Feeding the Gods. Hundreds of skulls reveal massive scale of human sacrifice in What? I looked up Mayans, not Aztec. Are you crazy? Well, we'll look for another one. All right, human sacrifice in Maya culture, posted on February 23rd, 2017 by Cindy Chang, and it's on the website Anthropological Perspectives on Death. Oh, okay. All right, so we're gonna read this. Human sacrifices were pretty common in Maya culture. Maya civilization covered a large area of land, which included southeastern Mexico and northern Central America. Right, we knew that. I think this is, I'm pretty sure, like, people, like Incas, Aztecs, and Mayas, they kind of saw gods as things they didn't understand, things that were unexplainable to them, like natural phenomena, kind of like the sun or rain. They didn't know where that came from, so they had a god for all of them. I mean, just imagine, this is what my social studies teacher said. I'm quoting my social studies teacher as of a few days ago. Imagine being just outside and experiencing wind for the first time ever, just flowing at your face, and you're just like, it's just like at you. Imagine being terrified of that, because I think I would be if people didn't know what it was and we were that early on in life, like 2000 BC, and you experienced wind or rain. No one would know why water was dripping from the sky. No one would know why giant white puffy things were in the blue sky. No one would know why bright white lights were in the dark sky. These are just things. They thought gods did that. The sun, huge giant fiery yellow thing that heats up our world, people would think was a god. Okay, so yeah, apparently the most common ways were decapitation and heart removal. That's horrible. Yes, this is really horrible. And there's a famous drawing that they made. It kind of looks like they're holding an apple. It is a heart. And I believe they actually had systems of class. Like they had social classes. And the highest were royals, obviously, like the kings, whatever. Next were clergy, like the priests and religious people. And then the middle class, kind of like artisans, peasants. I hate that word so much, but like just the people that were less fortunate at their time, because there were a lot of people like that. They were in the lower class section, and then there were slaves, very unfortunately. Don't know why that happened. Very horrible. But they didn't really know better, and that's what they did. And usually the sacrifices were lower class people, very unfortunately. Now my question is, did they actually, like, I know this is stupid, I know it's death in all, but for how religious I know the Mayans were, do you think that some of them, like, actually accepted and, like, volunteered? Because I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. And that's weird to me. That's very weird to me. Yeah, so a lot of these sacrifices were like depicted in Maya artwork, but they were so weird, and oh god, it was rough. Like I don't know why. I don't know why they did this, or like, I guess the gods were just so important to them for giving them weird natural phenomena like the sun. But it just confuses me how they thought of that, how they thought that was a good idea. Oh, let's sacrifice humans to the world. Maybe that's a good idea. Let's volunteer to basically murder humans at the top of a tower. Now, this is gonna bring me into the other part where they advanced. They're weird, mysterious things that they did, and very advanced astronomy, but that's later. So to start, they were just incredible at building. Like, their skills were impeccable, and these giant okay, so let me start. I want you to look up something for me. If you're listening to this podcast, go on Google and look up the Mayan Temples. I'll do it with you. Mayan Temples. Okay, Mayan Temples. So if you look at these things, they're like very intricate kind of works of art that are mysteriously in very good condition. And it's weird how good in condition they are, but like they look great. But the pieces, like these bricks and these stone that they built these temples with, were so heavy. I don't think you understand. They were multiple tons heavy, and they physically only had humans to do that. You know what else is interesting? If you look very closely, is there anything you notice about these? There's a picture here I'm looking at. They are so cleanly cut. It doesn't even look like they were built 1,000 or 100 or 900 years ago. They are perfectly clean cut, like so clean cut. It's honestly amazing. It's a little concerning, confusing a little bit. It's kind of mysterious. But what they did is they were able to cut these bricks and the sides and the slopes of these temples so cleanly that it was literally better than machines can do today. And the fact that they did that with a chisel confuses me ultimately. But just looking at these things, they're so nice, way too nice. They look great. These just the advanced technology that they had to be able to make this is very amazing to me. How physically advanced they were. I'm gonna look up some more things that I can share with you. But I want to talk about some of my background knowledge. Something else they did on the topic of building. There's this giant town. Ooh, that hurt. It's like a very long straight of many of these temples. They had so many of these. I believe this is where the human sacrifices occurred. As you can see at the top, there's like a courtyard thing. And I know this is very weird and brutal, a little bit gory, but I'm gonna say it if you don't want to listen to it. I'm pretty sure, this is what my social studies teacher told me. These slopes on the side of these temples was when they sacrificed them for the blood to run down for the gods, and it would basically collect at the bottom, which is very weird and a little scary. And they also had these giant snake heads at the bottom, and there's a whole thing about snake gods, which I'm gonna look up now actually. So I'm confused with it too. The snake gods. But I think they had a fascination with snakes, and a lot of their art showed snakes. Their temples at the bottom had snakes. A lot of their buildings had pictures of what they thought were snakes, and a lot of their hieroglyphics and symbols that we still can't translate to this day for some reason also had snakes in them. So the snake gods were just something. I think it would probably just probably like one of those dynasties of gods that they just like, I don't know. Let's see. Snake worship is just kind of a general thing. So here on Wikipedia it says the cobra was not only associated with the sun god Ra, but also many other deities such as oh god, there's no way I can pronounce any of this. Serpents could also be evil and harmful, such as the case of Apep Strange. But I don't know why. They just had a fascination with snakes. That's all I know. I just wanted to look that up. It's a little interesting to me too. And also talking about hieroglyphs, it's not actually hieroglyphs. I'm just using the Egyptian term for them. It's really just their symbols they use for communication, because they had a very advanced way of doing that too. But yeah, they're not hieroglyphics, because only the Egyptian symbols were hieroglyphics, not everything, which I should have known and should have said, but it's fine. So these symbols were also like very advanced, because we still haven't translated them, which is one thing. But they were very also cleanly cut. They were like on these plaques, kind of like the prehistoric things people did, like the Mesopotamians or whatever. But I think that's amazing. How crazy those hieroglyphs were. Dang it, I keep saying that. But if you look it up, if you do some research, their communication was pretty amazing. Let me look that up right now. Oh, maybe it is actually hieroglyphics. In Mayan hieroglyphics, they use symbols, also called glyphs, to represent words, sounds, or objects by putting several glyphs together. The Maya wrote sentences and told stories. Only the wealthy Maya became priests and learned how to read and write. Okay, yeah, so it's kind of like, dang, I can't think of this. This was in like 3rd grade I learned about this, but they wrote on long sheets of paper made from bark or leather. Interesting. And that is on Ducksters, which again, I love this website so much, and it's called Maya Civilization, Writing, Numbers, and Calendar. Calendar, you say? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the calendar, because it's physically amazing to me. Actually, wait, no, I think I was gonna say something else. Yeah, no, it's the Mayan Temples, right? They were building so well, like very scarily well, that people say, I don't know, aliens came out, maybe use some supernatural lasers to cut it. I don't know. Maybe. If you think that, respect, because honestly, I don't know. I physically can't. I don't know. Yeah, so, okay, I'm gonna read this also on Ducksters. The Maya had 2 kinds of calendars, a religious calendar called the Teotihuacan and a solar calendar called the Hab. Wait, actually, no. Teotihuacan might be the one we're going off. Every 52 years, the 2 calendars would start on the same day. They would celebrate the new fire festival on this day, El Fuego Nuevo. All the fires throughout their households and would be put out, and they would throw away all their clay utensils. It was a time for renewal and new beginnings. Kind of sounds like New Year's Eve. All right, I just want to talk about the religious calendar, the Teotihuacan. Oh, wait, no. Wait, what? Oh, never mind. The solar calendar, which obviously the solar calendar, or Hab, had 18 months of 20 days each. There were 5 extra unlucky days on the 19th month to get a total of 365.25 days in a year. They numbered the days in the month from 0 to 19. Here are a list of 19 Maya months in the Hab calendar. I'm gonna read these the best I can. First one, Pop, Wo, Sip, Sots, Xiol. I'm reading, like, these are in order. Yaksen, Mol, Chen, Yaks, Sak, Ke, Mak, Hankin, Sek. It kind of looks like Hawaiian words. Muan, Pax, Kayab, Kamuku, Wayeb. That's the month with 5 unlucky days. Okay, so that's the 19 months. Now, if anything in what I just read to you sound familiar, not the months, but before that, 365.25 days in a year, we may use that, I don't know. We certainly don't have 19 months, but we do have 12. January, February, March, and April, May, June, July, August, and September, October, November, December. These are the months of the year. Great. We have 12 months, not 19, but we do indeed have 365.25 days in a year. And the Mayas, they figured that out. Don't you think that's a little insane for a civilization that lasted, I don't know, 2,000 years? Maybe that's a little insane. But we still use that calendar system, kind of. We don't exactly use those 19 months, but we do use those 365 days. That is amazing. That's actually so cool. And you want to know what's even more interesting? My social studies teacher, she said this too. Basically, they did this just by looking at the stars. Did they have telescopes? No, they did not. They did not have telescopes. They literally just looked with their eyes, with the human eye, same sight you have right now, staring at the sky and be like, look at those stars. And then the next day, they look at them like, those stars look like they changed. They had a fascination with cycles. I read this, I had this in my paragraph. Let me read that exact sentence. They had a fascination with cycles and further developed the concept of their calendar by looking at the cycle of the stars and the sun. That is true. They had a very much fascination with cycles of nature, such cycles with the sky and all that stuff and clouds or whatever. Probably. I'm not actually positive about that. Whatever. But they would look at the sun, they'd look at the moon, they'd figure out how things worked, and they literally built a system of this just by looking at it, just by staring at the sky. They figured out that the sun had a cycle and it would move and it would change, and the stars had a cycle, and for that they made a solar calendar, which is amazing to me. And right here, we're gonna take a break because my throat hurts so bad, and we're about halfway done. Alright, it's been about 5 minutes and I'm back. I hope you enjoyed that little sponsorship break from our sponsor, Anchor. You should totally check it out if you want to start a podcast. It's literally as easy as that. It's incredible. I love Anchor. I started this podcast off of Anchor, so I have I love it, like, so much. It's great. So I want to address something real fast. Those last 37 minutes of this podcast, there was a really annoying clicking sound, probably about 100 times. Every time it clipped, every time I got a little too loud, it made a stupid clicking sound, and it really bothered me. And I'm so sorry. I turned the volume down. It was apparently too loud. I feel really bad. I'm so sorry. It got so loud. So it just, I guess, try to ignore it. If you've been, oh my gosh, if you've been at home like, oh my God, Karsten, figure it out. I feel you. I'm sorry. And it probably just happened right there because I got pretty loud. So I'll quiet down a little. So to get me back in the mood of this very deep thoughts, I'm going to play Mary Had a Little Lamb on record. Ready for this? I literally relearned it for this moment. What did you think? Okay, so I just listened over that. With that, even with that clip, the same thing happened. So if this is happening, I feel so bad. I'm not even kidding. It's severely bothering me. Please don't turn away though. I feel like this is such a quality episode. I just, of course that had to happen. So this is going to be a test right now. I'm speaking right now. I'm just going to say, hello there, my name is Karsten, and today I'm going to be talking about weird mysteries, and we're going to see if that did that clicking sound. So I'm going to listen to that right over, and then we'll get back to the jazz. Okay, so I think it worked. I plugged out my microphone, plugged it back in. That's very good news. So in celebration, Mary Had a Little Lamb one more time. Then we'll get back to us. I mean, this is a long episode. We have time for this type of thing. Ready? Oh, weird. Dang it! Try one more time. Wait. Something's going on with that. It's okay though. I'm gonna just not do it anymore. So back to what we're talking about. Got me in the mood again. So we were talking about Mayan stuff, I think, which again I think is actually crazy. Just the calendar system and the things that they made were so advanced that, like, it's crazy. I mean, I just don't understand that type of thing. I don't understand how that happens because they were literally an ancient civilization. Where did they get that thing, that type of knowledge from? Like, how did they learn that? Because did they have contact with other civilizations? Did they have contact with, oh, I don't know, aliens? I don't know. So that is the unsolved mystery of the world. But we're gonna keep going. There's something else I want to talk about. Building walls. That was my beautiful vocal transition into this very short segment I want to talk about the Mayans, because this is something also very interesting we learned in social studies. My social studies teacher was showing us a slideshow of some pictures to put an image in our heads about the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Mayans, which are my favorite out of the three. I'm sorry, Incas and Aztecs. I severely apologize. Please forgive me. But the Mayans built these gigantic artwork walls, basically. And I kind of want to look this up, and you should too, because it's going to be very confusing if you don't. So if you want a reference of this, let me see what to search up. Mayan wall art. Yeah, okay. Probably, no, wait, no, that just searched up like hieroglyph things. Mayan, and animal art wall, Mayan sculptures. Found it. Okay, so this is what it's called. I'm going to cut that all out because I just spoiled it, but it's called Nazca lines. So Nazca lines, Nazca lines. And I think this might be the most interesting thing ever. Obviously, as you're seeing this, they're crazy, right? This is so sick looking. Just a bunch. It's basically very cool pictures of animals and things and symbols that are gigantic, can only be seen from above. Like, you can see them from above. You can see them from in a plane, built out of walls. So it's like little mini walls that they built to make these giant animal things. There's one called, like, kind of looks like a spider. And I think it's really cool. I think that's my favorite one. It's a spider. But I want to talk about how interesting this actually is, if you think about it. Because these lines, it's something interesting, is that these animals were not native to where the Mayans lived. And they had a giant piece of land, don't get me wrong. But my social studies teacher was saying that some of the animals they drew, like these types of spiders, or these big, weird, like, I don't know, elephants or something, those were not native. Like, where they lived in the middle of the desert in Central America. Like, only some of those animals were found in continents over, like Africa or something. It's crazy because, I don't know, where did they figure out pictures of animals like that? Did aliens do it? But I think the most interesting thing, well, let me just clear this up first. The Mayans couldn't fly, right? We know that. The Mayans didn't have planes. I mean, this was something BC. Like, they couldn't fly, all right? They didn't, unless there was flying saucers. They did not have airplanes, helicopters, wingsuits, jetpacks. They didn't. Unless they did. I don't know. Maybe they did, but as we know right now, they didn't. Then again, we don't really know much about them. So I'm just gonna say that they didn't have these jetpacks and such as flying things. I don't know what I'm saying. But what's interesting is the only way you can see these pictures of the animals is from the sky. Only way you can see the pictures of the animals is in the sky. The only way you can see the final result is by flying over it. Did they have flying things? Unless there was flying saucers, they didn't. So how they do that? And how is it so even? It's honestly scary how great they look. They're so good. They like literally are perfect. They're straight and they're like very straight lines that are actually amazing, and like curved, and it's really cool, all right? It's amazing. So how did they do that? Now, shout out again to my friend Nate's dad in this car that we were having a conversation with. He said he thought it was kind of map work, kind of like that. Maybe it was like signaling something. Maybe there were symbols to like direct something, to show something for the flying saucers above, or it was just like they used maps to make it. I think both of those things are honestly kind of sensible. They kind of make sense. Now another thing with flying saucers and these Aztec things, I meant Mayan people. I touched upon this before, but I never finished what I was gonna say. If you recall me saying, it was something about a large straight, like a large narrow road kind of thing with a bunch of these Mayan temples. That's where I started talking about Mayan temples. But we looked up the Mayan temples and saw what they were, but it's like there was a lot of them. They were in like circles. It was a cool like courtyard thing, but all in all, it was one large straight road. Now, what does a large straight road, kind of like a road, a long straight rectangle, what do you think that is? What do you think that is? Did you say a runway? Because if you did, that's what I think. How did they have a runway if they didn't have planes? Flying saucers, alien ships, UFOs. I think that's what that was for, honestly. Also, I'm looking at these Nazca lines again, and there's one of a monkey, and I doubt that there was monkeys where they were. And also, I was watching a documentary, and a really interesting thing somebody said is that the Mayan ruins right now, which you can go visit them, and they're actually pretty good intact. They're overgrown with the forest, which means that the forest wasn't really there when they built some of that stuff, or most of it wasn't. So where were the monkeys? But like the forest kind of overgrew as the forest around the ruins. So like it was that long ago that they made such intricate things, and also monkeys. So that leaves me with more questions than I started with. So that's about the Mayans. That's the Mayans for you guys. The interesting Mayans, which again I think are so cool, and I love to research them. Last Friday night. Oh wait, no, that was yesterday. Last Thursday night. I know you're feeling kind of brave. Drop the pic and no. I just confused like 5 different things. So on Thursday, I was up to like 1, because I couldn't stop researching Mayans until like 11:30, and I couldn't sleep. But it's cool. It's fine. So that's the Mayans. I think they're great. I think they're very interesting and very mysterious, and I don't think that we'll ever get answers, which kind of makes me uncertain and a little unsettled. But you know what? Who cares? Whatever. It's fine. So yeah, a little sad about that, but who cares? We don't need answers. We can just keep going on and thinking and wondering, because that's what science and life and thoughts is all about. The meaning of life is relative. Everybody has a different meaning of life. That is very deep, and that kind of brings me to the next segment, which we're going to talk about more things, but not exactly yet. So the next segment is Deep Thoughts. Yeah, you heard me. Deep Thoughts. We're going to talk about some deep thoughts because it's just a really stupid quick segment to add more time. But I do have some files from a long time ago of deep thoughts, so we're gonna insert those in, and here's some deep thoughts from Karsten.
Why do we drive on a parkway but park in a driveway? I mean, who decided upon the fact that they wouldn't call the parkway the driveway? And then you park in your parkway. What? Your own personal parkway. Exiting to the driveway. It's so much easier. If you were to take just a regular cherry ice pop top, melt it and freeze it, and melt it and freeze it, and do that process 10 times, would it taste exactly the same as it did the first time? When someone gets angry at you for producing content with your best version of yourself, they shouldn't be, because it's still a version of yourself. So it's still a part of you. It's not anything you're making up. I'm a strong believer you can take any sentence in the entire world and say it again with a little more of a sad undertone, using some more dramatic words, and it will turn out so much differently you don't even understand. For example, hey Charles, you better clean up that old room of yours before it gets pretty dirty like it once was. Versus, my dearest young boy, you have to go back and clean that old bedroom of yours before it turns back to the trash heap that it once was so long ago. Do you want that? Do you want it to go back to what it once was? Do you, Charles? Now, I don't know about you, but on a normal Tuesday, if my mom said that to me, I'd be like, yes, Mom, without any hesitation, and go upstairs and do it immediately. I don't know about you. Do you know how we always use the term little Timmy as in little Timmy took a tumble? Little Timmy implies that there is existence of Big Timmy. That scares me. Same goes for Minnie Mouse. Minnie Mouse implies the existence of Mega Mouse. That scares me. And same goes for FNAF Baby, the character Baby. You know, I'd love to see a sequel where they add teen, tween, young adult, and adult. That scares me. So on the topic of implying the existence of other things because of other things, Top Golf exists. Does that mean there is bottom golf? And what if bottom golf was just a giant hole dug out in the ground and there was like a basement level and you would hit upwards onto the green? That would be kind of cool. I want to bring you something called Let's Take Some Sports Names Literally. Starting with football. Football, that would be like an actual foot being the ball. And you know, like basketball, using a basket as the ball. Like, those classic things. Let's go a little bit weirder with the names. Cricket, I just don't even want to imagine how that would play. And honestly, I think the weirdest one so far, spike ball. I think it might be just a little bit weird to play with a giant spike as the ball on a little bit of like a little mini train. That's definitely the worst. That's definitely the worst one. Why is a cup of Joe called a cup of Joe? My theory about this is because Joe is such an average name and coffee is such an average like thing to do, and every average Joe drinks his average cup of Joe. And you always see the average person drinking the average cup of coffee. So is that why it's just the average Joe cup of Joe, or as Mr. Roney would say, Joe Schmo? So let's say there's a tow truck going down the road and it's towing a car. What if the driver somehow abandons the job, because it can happen, and the tow truck gets towed with a car that's already being towed? And what if that tow truck already has a car? Do they need to call another tow truck? I'm confused. I think one day I would like to do this, bring like 1,000 pieces of paper to school with everybody's yearbook picture, including the teachers, and get their signature, because one day, at least one student, at least one, it has to be, is going to be famous someday. So if you have their signature with their yearbook picture from when they were in elementary school, there you go. That is instant riches for you.
Yeah, very unrelated, but I thought it was interesting. Just wanted to share that with you. So that concludes Deep Thoughts. Yeah, you heard me. That's right. I'm gonna do my little quarter outro segue thing. Wait, no, wrong thing. Oh yeah, it's Deep Thoughts with Karst. That was pretty fun. Now we're going to talk about some other natural phenomena thing that was made. Some man-made stuff, but I think these are very interesting. And you might be familiar with some of these. Right. This is what I was looking at. I was watching, when I was talking about how Thursday, I was researching the Mayans. I found just a general YouTube mini documentary by this narrator that everybody in the comments didn't seem to like for some reason. About just natural, weird, ancient mysteries. And here's one called the, Antikythera mechanism. I'm gonna spell it for you so you can look it up and have a reference picture again. A-N-T-I, like anti, K-Y-T-H-E-R-A mechanism. It's a 2,000-year-old computer. According to Vox, which is the website I'm looking at, and the article name is The Antikythera Mechanism is a 2,000-year-old Computer, published by Brian Resnick, updated May 17, 2017, 12:90 p.m. So there you go. We're gonna talk about it because 115 years ago, according to this article, divers found a hunk of bronze off of a Greek island. It changed our understanding of human history. So based on what I know, this is not Mayan, or this is just another mystery of the world. Basically, this thing is just an old computer, essentially, and they found this 115 years ago, I guess. That's amazing. So I'm gonna read this to you. An archaeologist was sifting through objects found in the wreck of a 2,000-year-old vessel off the Greek island Antikythera. So I guess that's an island. That's why it's called the Antikythera mechanism. So yeah, again, a boat, a giant Greek vessel sank, and I'm not sure if this is the Romans or not, but I'm pretty sure the Greeks were very advanced too. They shaped our democratic, like, everything. They kind of shaped how our democracy works. They had a wonderful democracy. But yeah, they also had a very, very good, like, naval army, right? I feel like maybe that was the Romans, but, well, the Romans had Roman fire. Is that Greek fire? The fire that, like, didn't burn in water, or didn't put out in water. Maybe that's a legend. I don't know. But yeah, so they had I'm pretty sure, I'm just gonna say it's the Greeks. They had a actually insane, like, naval army and these crazy vessels, but I mean, apparently one of them sank 2,000 years ago. And okay, so yeah, among the wreck's treasures, beautiful vases and pots, jewelry, a bronze statue of an ancient philosopher was the most peculiar thing. A series of brass gears and dials mounted in the case of a mantle clock. So basically, this thing, it is incredibly well, it's kind of art, honestly, but it's incredibly, like, algae. And it's like very grown over. It looks pretty bad because, I mean, it's been in the water for 2,000 years, which, you know, does something to some, but like, it's kind of cool. It looks really cool. I'm looking at it right now. It's like a system of gears. You can see one main gear, and then, like, apparently there's other gears because it's so old you can't really see it, but there were other gears. It's a system of gears called the Antikythera mechanism, and just that in general. 2,000 years ago, they figured out how to make a gear system the size of a clock on a mantle. That's amazing. Wow. I don't know. That's crazy. It's like a really advanced instrument that they made in Athens, like, just 2,000 years ago. I don't understand how ancient civilizations were so incredibly advanced, like the Mayas, but you know what, whatever. How this happened? Good question. So we're gonna read about what this is. At first glance, the piece of brass found near the wreck looks like something you might find on a junkyard or hanging on the wall of a maritime themed dive bar. Okay, but I wanna read about why the article is called the Antikythera mechanism as a 2,000-year-old computer, because you're like, well, computers don't exist in 2,000 years ago. As a matter of fact, they probably aren't even 100 years old. Well, if they found this 150, okay. I'm sure there was a version of it. Okay. To archaeologists, it was immediately apparent that the mechanism was some sort of clock. Obviously, that's kind of how clock works. Looks like a gear system thing, and it moves according to, well, we'll see. Or a calendar or calculating device. Interesting. 2,000 years ago, that's very good. But I mean, Greek philosophy and Roman philosophy was like kind of crazy. They were like really weird mathematicians, and they were thinkers, which I'm not kidding is an actual term. It was in my social studies textbook. They were thinkers, kind of like Aristotle or other people that I can't really think of right now. But I think it's like their logic was pretty stupid, if I'm being honest. But I mean, 2,000 years ago, so cut them some slack, Karsten. Cut them some slack, Karsten. Jeez, pal. But I think my favorite example is like, this isn't like confirmed or official at all. I just completely made this up, but it kind of like summarizes what their logic was like. It's like, well, birds have feet and so do humans. So the reason birds fly is not their feet, obviously, but like that's just kind of what they would do. It's like that. So let's see what happened in 1959. In 1959, Princeton, that's in Jersey. New Jersey's great for so many reasons. In 1959, Princeton science historian Derek J. DeSoya Price, wow, I read that wrong. Derek J. DeSoya Price provided the most thorough scientific analysis of the contraption to date. Interesting. What was his analysis? I would like to know. Okay, so this mechanism was used to predict the position of the planets and stars in the sky depending on a calendar month. So a main gear would move to represent the calendar year and would, in turn, move many separate smaller gears to represent the motions of the planet, sun, and moon. Okay, all right, okay. Really? Are you kidding? 2,000 years ago, you're telling 2,000. That's 200 times 100. Wait a minute. Nope, no, it's not. That is 20 times. No, wait. Yeah, that's 20 times 100 years ago. So 100 years ago was 1900. 20 times that. It's like barely any AD. Something, I don't know. But that's crazy though. And this kind of reminds me of the Mayan stuff, like how they made a calendar system that long ago. And apparently Athens made their calendar system that honestly, it seems to be accurate to what we do these days. Like how it represents, you know, things like the moon and the stars and the sun. Like how, you know what I want to know? How in the world did that work? Because I don't think it really says. It says Price declared in the pages of Scientific American, I guess that's a magazine, that it was a computer. The mechanism is like a great astronomical clock or a modern analog computer which uses mechanical parts to solve tedious calculation. Okay, how? I'm not countering this guy's opinion in any way, but I'm genuinely curious how they physically worked that thing. If they made a clock like that, how did they do it? Like, yeah, I get it. It turns in the motions of the sun, planets, and moon and stars. How is that programmed? It's a gear. How did they program that? Does that work? They didn't have program back then. Maybe I'm stupid and maybe it's obvious, but like that's amazing. I can't think of it, and I live in 2021. I was born in 2009. They were born probably in like, I don't know, 14 AD, something like that. That's just insane to me. Or maybe even like, imagine, okay, if this is 2,000 years ago, 2,000 something years old, that could be as early as early as like 21 AD, and maybe, I don't know, a 60-year-old philosopher made this. So that means he was literally born in like, I don't know, like 40 BC or something like that. That's just insane. That old? How is that working? How did a philosopher, the thinkers that had really weird logic, come up with a physical clock accurate enough to portray the movement of the stars? That's too much for me. I can't even comprehend that. So, all right. Since Price's assessment, modern X-ray and 3D mapping technology have allowed scientists to peer deeper into the remains of the mechanism and learn even more of its secrets. In the 2000s, researchers revealed text, a kind of instruction manual. Are you kidding? No shot. There was an instruction manual on this. What is this? How? It's amazing. This is mind-boggling to my head. Inscribed on parts of the mechanism that had never been seen before. The text, written in tiny typeface but legible ancient Greek, helped them complete the puzzle of what the machine did and how it was operated. In all, it's astounding. I completely agree. It's completely astounding. It's intriguing. It's beauteous, and it's use the word impeccable. I'm gonna use it again. And it's impeccable, as well as astounding. That's an understatement. That's amazing. How did they do that? Are you seriously telling me they did that? They did that 2,000 years ago? How? What? Fine, Greek philosophers in 4 BC. How? You know what? I respect them. That's amazing. That's actually amazing. Alright, so the mechanism had several dials and clock faces, each which served a different function for the measuring movements of the sun, moon, stars, and planets. Okay, how? I know I'm saying this, but I'm seriously confused. You're telling me that this is an actual real thing. This is an actual 2,000-year-old quote-unquote computer from Athens, from Greece, from ancient Greece, you know, the thing that completely got destroyed and is barely intact anywhere, yet that actually happened. The Greek thinkers who figured out that, like, atoms existed made that 2,000 years ago. That's amazing. That's incredible. Speaking of, how did they figure out atoms existed? Who looked at the ground and be like, what if that was just billions of particles in one place, but not even particles smaller than so? I want to know. I want to meet that guy. I bet his name is like, I don't know, something like Aristotle. It's something famous though. We literally learned about this last year. I don't know why I'm not remembering. They were all operated by one main crank. So you cranked it. Little stone or glass orbs that would have been moved across the machine's face to show the motion of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter in the night sky. Listen to me, Reed. How did they exactly know where the planets were? They didn't really have telescopes. This was 2,000 years ago. So how did they exactly know about Venus and Mercury and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter? I know it's probably obvious again, but physically how? How does that work? How did they know that? How? Whatever. They're too advanced. They're more advanced than I am. They're more advanced than like our civilization. They're more advanced than most of our civilization. Well, not really. Just they had more knowledge than a lot of people can comprehend still. The position of the sun. Okay, so it measured that. It measured the position of the sun and moon relative to the 12 constellations of the zodiac. And there was another dial forecasting solar and lunar eclipses. And oddly, predictions about their color. Researchers guessed that different colors eclipses were considered omens of the future. Wow, omens of the future. Well, I guess they were also polytheistic and thought of a lot of gods and weird legends, so I wouldn't be surprised. A solar calendar charting the 365 days of the year. I'm assuming that evolved from the Mayas because they're original. A lunar calendar counting a 19-year lunar cycle. I didn't know about that. And a tiny pearl-sized ball that rotated to show you the phase of the moon. Okay, that's incredible. That's insane. Imagine that. That's actually so sick. Like today, I want that. I want that like on my desk to show the position of the moon, what phase it's in, where the planets are. And they made that 2,000 years ago? Can they even make that today? Can they? Because I want it. They can. Tell me where it is. I seriously want that. Before we move on to the last thing, I just want to bring a point to you. Are we sure that's what that was? And it wasn't just, I don't know, experimentation with gears, or, I don't know, a clock? Because they probably had that. I mean, if they had this, they probably had a clock. What if it was just that? What if we just put all this information to a giant astronomical array of beautiful and incredibly advanced things that seem a little unrealistic for that time, 2,000 years ago, if that's what it is, from a shipwreck that is still somehow legible with Greek writing on the back. You never, could it just been a clock? Do they really know there was a pearl-sized ball that exactly showed the phase of the moon? Is that confirmed? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know. Whatever. Last thing. It's called Stonehenge, and you've probably heard of it. If you haven't, then you're lying. Everybody has. Now look it up on your computer or whatever the heck you have. Look it up on your phone. Trust me. Do it. Just do it. If you're listening to me on the background, get your phone and look it up. You want to. Trust me. Again, you can have a reference picture. Just look at this thing. Clearly, it's a very strange-looking circle with a bunch of tall stones. And some of them are connected at the top, some of them are individual, and according according to, I don't know, probably like in the philosophers or scientists or astronomers, can resemble a clock possibly, or some sort of astronomical thing, kind of like a solar position thing, kind of like the antique era mechanism we just looked at. It could be a giant version of that. Now, I want you to look at, there's this picture here I'm looking at right now, which is people next to it, like tourists. And these rocks, like individual rocks, are as much as like 7 times taller than people, or like 4 or like 5 or 6 times taller. And to think that prehistoric people put that up and stood it somehow, like physically balanced, I don't know, 20 ton giant boulders that they shaped into these perfect squares that could resemble something very advanced. How is that possible? And who in their right mind imagined this in their head? Because I want to meet them and I want to understand what brought them to this conclusion. It's fine. So, again, how did they put that up? Like, what in the world is that? How did they do that? It's extremely heavy. Like, that's incredible. And I was talking about before, the Mayan Temples stuff were heavy. So it was like the Pyramid of Giza, like the individual bricks on the pyramids in Giza, all the pyramids, everything, all the tomb-built pyramid things. Those are so insanely heavy. I don't think you understand. They're like very heavy, like tons. And it's like sandstone. Like they like dug it out, they quarried it, and then put it on a pyramid. And they built it in a way that literally worked. It balanced. It was a giant triangle. That's huge. How? Good question. They literally had people pick it up and walk it. How long did that take? How long did that take? There's no way. No, I really don't know though. That's amazing to me. Like the fact that they actually did that and they're actually intact and you can actually see them physically amazes me. How in the world they actually do that? Like how heavy they are, how giant they were. Like, oh no, it's too much about. They must take like hundreds of years. Like throughout many like dynasties of pharaohs, they just continued. They're like, oh well, yeah, the pharaoh died 400 years ago, but we got to continue his tomb. Well, he's probably disintegrated by now. He's part of the air at this point. Like, how did they build this? How did they build Stonehenge? The last 2 things I want to say about Stonehenge is the fact that these stones were not native, apparently, to the area. So again, did they transport them? Was it built by aliens? Because I'm starting to think so. Also, it looks very broken. So like, was it eventually a whole circle at one point or something? Because like, that's what people are saying. It was like at one point a big actual connected circle. Because from the top, it's like broken and worn down. It's not connected and it's really random. Maybe desperately random. Maybe it's so random. Maybe it's so not random that it was supposed to look like it was random by the alien. Make it look like humans did it. I don't know. But like this, if the stones weren't native, then that's just a whole different ballpark. That's amazing. How old is Stonehenge? Oh, no way. You ready for this one? No, I can't. No way. Stonehenge is perhaps the world's most famous prehistoric monument. It was built in several stages. The first monument was an early henge monument built about 5,000 years ago, and the unique stone circle was built in the late Neolithic period, about 2,500 BC. Did you hear that? Yep. It was already 1,000 years old when the pyramids were built. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna leave you to think about that. That's amazing. You're telling me 5,000 years ago they put that up, they stood that there? It's not natural. That's not natural. That was not there. The world did not spawn with rocks like that, perfectly even on the outside, all looking alike and connected at certain. No, didn't happen. You can't tell me it did. I will not believe you. And the fact that the rocks are so heavy, the fact that they're not native to the air, no, didn't happen. So right there, I'm gonna leave you to think about that and not be able to sleep for the rest of your life. Goodbye. Sorry about the clicking. Peace. On the topic of Stonehenge, I literally, when I was researching and brainstorming for this podcast, I'm not kidding, I really wanted to tell this story. I just like literally was the only thing I was thinking about, and of course I forgot because it's just something I do. But I'm gonna tell it now, and this is after the fact. I just finished the episode. I'm just gonna insert this because if you're familiar with Stonehenge clocks, which some of you may be, out there watching, maybe my friend group, I don't know. I'm just gonna tell you a little story. I went to town, not our town, a different town, with my friends once, and I don't know why the conversation started, but we were talking about clocks, and I feel like I've mentioned a lot of clocks in this episode. I don't know, the thing, like the Antikythera mechanism, Stonehenge that could be a clock, like the astronomical calendar clock system that the Mayans made. So we went to a different town with our friend group, and in the center of this town, they had a really beautiful clock. Like, honestly, it is really nice. It's a cool, like a mini tiny clock. Well, not really mini tiny. It's like a very, very small Big Ben. But probably scaled down 1,000 times. It's like a big standing clock. Kind of looks like a big lamppost, but it's like nice. It's cool and it's rectangular. So about 1,000 times smaller than the Big Ben. But it's super sick. And it's just really nice. And I was just joking around. I'm like, oh, that's the Eucalyptus E47 clock. I don't know why eucalyptus came to mind, but it did. So then my friends are playing along like, yes, I love that one. Have you heard of the eucalyptus E99? I'm like, oh, what's a model? Of course. And then we kept going on making new things. A whole storyline. We probably did it for probably about 3 hours. We made Ryzen clocks. There was this guy named Dan. He started with his company. He was getting really big in the clock industry. We had I don't know. Right. We had, Eucalyptus. I said that we have Brawlers, owner John Brawler. They started releasing digital clocks, and it kind of all went by their first letters. So it'd be like Eucalyptus E90, Brawler B70, Ryzen R1, like things like that. There was Eisenhower by Dan Eisenhower, and Dan and Eisenhower clocks. The brand name was Eisenhower Clock Making Company, Co. And they fell from the industry because their clocks were not selling well. They're really dated. They don't have variety or diversity. Nobody liked them. There's a Quora Clock. The owner is a Quora Brown. And her company was removed from the industry 10 years ago because of a massive failure in the AA33 grandfather clock. It caused a massive fire that burned down a historic monument. Everybody was sad about it. Darnell Eisenhower, who is now the current owner, or was the current owner of Eisenhower because Dan Eisenhower died. He was so mad at the other clock companies that he wanted to ruin them forever. So he burnt down part of the Big Ben. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened. But the main thing I wanted to tell you guys about was the Stonehenge clock company I made because we were making these companies and I decided we were just kind of playing around making really weird names for clock companies at this day in town, and we were sitting down at a diner eating food and I'm like, oh yes, I actually just heard about the new Stonehenge clock company, and I don't know why Stonehenge came to mind. I don't even think I was thinking about the monument that we were just talking about a few minutes ago, but now in hindsight I might be the most genius thing I've ever said in my life. So the story went on. The owner of the Stonehenge died, so they wanted to give it to a random follower of their blog, and I was a follower of their blog, so they called me, and I accepted, and I owned Stonehenge for years until I committed massive tax fraud. This didn't actually happen, by the way, I'm 12, but in this world that we made of the clock enthusiast group chat, I owned a clock company called Stonehenge. Didn't think about the monument, but you want to know why that's absolutely genius? You want to know? Because guess what? Stonehenge is believed to be a clock, kind of. It's believed to portray astronomical things or time or something. They don't know what Stonehenge is, the actual monument thing that we were just talking about, but people think it's a clock. So I didn't know that, but when I said Stonehenge clocks, apparently that's absolutely genius, and it was meant to happen because Stonehenge could have been a clock, and Stonehenge clocks just work so well, and it literally came off the top of my head, the first word I could think of. I wanted it to be an S because S clock sounds good, like Stonehenge, S71, something like that, but I think that's just actually great. I thought it was so funny, and I just thought about that the other day. Another funny thing is I actually have a Google, you can get an alt number on Google Voice. I think it's called Google Voice. Yeah, Google Voice. You can get an alt number just for things. And I literally had my clock company have a number, and all my friends would just call me and make up stupid situations. And I had a whole list of employees. Really funny. And I also had there was a Harrison who was the therapist of Stonehenge clocks. I don't know why we had a therapist, but just in case, the clock's lit on fire or murdered somebody, you wanted to talk to the therapist, you could call and be like, can I talk to Harrison? He'd be like, of course, just do that. So, let me see if I can find, here are all the employees. We have Finn, he is the secretary. We have me, I'm the CEO. We have Randy, he's what is Randy? Oh, he's customer service. We have Constantine, who's the other customer service. Harrison, he's the therapist. Jared is a salesman. Davidson, what does he do? Oh, he's the assistant to the CEO. We have Cletus, he works at the store. He works at the chain of Stonehenge stores, the main one, in New York City. He works there. Martin also works in the store and kind of helps out in the back if someone calls and they're looking for a specific model in the back. He's the guy. Gordon is the clock executive guy. He knows all of information. He's a clock enthusiast, entrepreneur, and he is a connoisseur, and he knows everything about it. So if you need some information, he'll help you. If you need to solve any problems with your Stonehenge clock, call him. And we have Travis, Thomas, our graphic designer, who makes a lot of great things for our company. Yeah, one of the weirdest things I've ever done in my entire life, but super funny. I just want to tell you about that, how Stonehenge is the most genius thing ever. Also, we were talking about a lot of clocks, and I think in 1,000 years, if that's the only information of our civilization left behind, that'll be the greatest mystery, and maybe someone like me will end up making a podcast about it. So, all right, see ya. I'm gonna go make an egg now.